You're listening to the Piano Parent Podcast with Shelley Davis, episode 354. Hey there, and welcome to the Piano Parent Podcast. I'm Shelley Davis, a longtime piano teacher and parent with my husband of 4 mostly musical kids. As parents, we spend so much time trying to encourage and motivate our kids. We wonder if we're doing the best things for them. We second guess our decisions, and we worry if we're going to scar them for life. While you focus on encouraging your kids, I'm here to reassure and inspire you. I'll be here every week with practice tips, inspirational teacher interviews, and musical topics to help you impress your kids with your musical knowledge. Parenting is not for the faint of heart, but it's much easier with support, and you have come to the right place. Good morning, piano parents. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast today. I have a real treat for you. You're going to get to listen to an interview with Tim Topham. You may not be familiar with that name as a piano parent, but for piano teachers, the name Tim Topham is highly recognizable. He is the founder and director of Top Music. Tim hosts the popular integrated music teaching podcast and blogs regularly at topmusic.co. He speaks at local and international conferences on topics such as integrated teaching, creativity, business, marketing, and entrepreneurship. He's been featured in American Music Teacher, Piano Teacher Magazine, California Music Teacher, and EPTA Piano Professional. Tim was one of the first podcasters who had a focus on piano teaching, and I listened to him in the early days, and actually listening to his podcast inspired me to give it a try myself. His podcast is focused more toward piano teachers, and I felt like something needed to be shared to support piano parents. And Tim was one of the first people to reach out to me, clear across the world. You'll find out where when you listen to him speak. But he reached out to me across the globe to encourage me in the beginning days of my podcast. And I consider him to be a musical friend to this day. And so we were one of the first people that he thought of when he wanted to get the word out about a new book that he has. Even though, as I mentioned in his bio, a lot of his topics tend to focus on the teaching side of piano lessons, today he wanted to visit directly with you, piano parents. He wanted to share with you his new book called No Book Beginners, and it's just releasing this month in November. And we get to hear an inside track into the thought process about why he wanted to write the book and how teachers can use the book, how parents can use the book, and how it can be beneficial to piano kids. So I am very excited to bring to you this interview with Tim Topham. Tim, it is so great to see you again and to connect with you. Thank you so much for hopping on the podcast with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Shelley. It's wonderful to catch up with you. We were just saying it's been a long time. It's probably been more than 6 or 7 years that we were really connecting together. Yes. So it's great to see you again, and thanks for having me.
It's fun to kind of compare notes with when we first met, and you've been on the podcast before, and you've invited me on your show before, and it's really neat to meet up with I hate to say old friend. It's nice to meet up with a friend again.
And a fellow podcaster. Your show, I've been so impressed, and I tune in, I jump in and out of a number of podcasts, and yours is one of them. And just to see where sort of, you're hundreds of episodes in like me, and I know how hard that is. So congratulations to you, and thank you for all that you do to support the piano parents of the world. I think it's amazing.
Thank you. And I think I have told you this before, but it bears repeating that you inspired me. I listened to your podcast in its early days, and it was very inspirational to me as a teacher. But then as you were sharing stories and speaking to different people, it just kind of gave me the impetus to give it a try and see if I could find my voice. So thank you for the encouragement.
That's a pleasure. It's lovely to hear. And I do apologize if there's any weird bangs and crashes in the background like that.
Yes.
We're right in the middle of renovations here.
Good for you.
Yeah, so I'll try and mute when I can, okay?
Well, and I wasn't going to ask. Of course, people on the podcast can't see that your background is kind of blurred out, but now that makes sense a little bit. If you've got some renovations going on back there, let's just keep that under wraps.
Yes, my office is currently also a bedroom and dumping ground for a whole lot of stuff. So definitely keeping the background blurred for now.
Awesome. You're a regular person, just like the rest of us. I love it. So catch us up. I was looking in my notes, and it looks like the last time we visited on the podcast was way back in 2018. And people, I'll link that up in the show notes, and people can go back and listen to that episode. I did look, and one of the things that you were focusing on is encouraging students to be able to make music for life. It needs to be a lifelong endeavor. And it's interesting that 5 years later, you're still passionate about that same topic. We're going to be approaching it from a little bit of a different angle today, but you ring true. What you were practicing and preaching 5 years ago, you're still very passionate about. For listeners who haven't caught you yet or haven't met you before as parents of piano teachers, give us a little introduction. Just tell us a little bit more about you, what you've been up to since we last talked, and just kind of help us get to know you a little bit.
Thanks, Shelley. Yeah, so I'm down here in Melbourne, Australia, and I've been working since 2010 to help music teachers to teach better, to teach more creatively, to have more confidence, to feel more supported, and to run really sustainable businesses. That's the sort of the main focus of my work. And yes, as you say, the focus has most definitely been on adding creativity to lessons and creating experiences that students will hopefully take into later life and not quit at some stage along the journey. That's the real goal. And I'm also a parent. I've got two boys, and I have been a piano parent, although not as successfully as I might have liked. But we can talk about that later if you want to. And I think just going back to that lifelong music pathway, I think there are two big inflection points in a student's journey. One is the first lessons and the experience that they have in those first 5 to 10 lessons, I think is super critical, how we set that up. And then I think the next big inflection or challenge point is when they hit the early teenage years between 12 and 14, when if we haven't helped them start to identify themselves as musicians, that is the period when so many drop off. And so I'm very pro helping teachers manage that sort of period of their lives. And look, it's a really tricky time for parents as well. I have one in the thick of that at the moment, and it is quite challenging. As we all know, teenagers can be a real challenge. But sort of managing that as a teacher of music as well is, another whole area we could talk about. So much to talk about.
Yes. So good. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. It seems like if we don't make that really strong connection from a teaching standpoint within the first few weeks, if we don't build that relationship and the trust between teacher and student, it's hard to build that connection. And then when students get older, as you say, into their early teens, and there are so many other opportunities pulling for their attention, so many extracurricular activities that if they're not confident in themselves as a musician, then they can easily jump ship. And maybe for the better. Maybe they switch from piano to band or orchestra, and I still count that a win if they're still musical. But the longer we can keep them involved in instrument, the more we can help children identify as musicians. I think that is a very powerful gift we can give to them. Children have a deep sense of belonging. And as parents, we want to help direct them to belong to something that is aligned with our family values. So I appreciate that.
And I think as parents too, you can help the teachers at that period of time. One of the things that teachers should be doing lots of is giving more and more autonomy to their teenage students to choose what they want to play and what they want to learn. At the same time, teachers should be helping their teenage students learn hooks, like melody ideas from popular songs, so that they can go and show off to their mates.
Yes.
Who all say, wow, Tim's such a cool pianist. Listen to him play Coldplay and all this kind of stuff. So what parents can do in that situation is help the teacher by being aware of what their teen is listening to. Now, I know everyone has headphones on, so it's kind of difficult, but when the opportunity arises, if you hear stuff that your child is listening to, pass it on to the teacher and see if the teacher can help them learn some of that on the piano, because that's the kind of hook. Those musical hooks become hooks to continuing learning and to becoming building that identity.
Yes. Yes. I think it's interesting that you mentioned Coldplay. Back when I was a teenager, the song to play was the melody, the theme to Hill Street Blues.
I remember that.
Show.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No, I remember it well. I played it. Bum, bum, bum.
That's the one. Thank you.
Dun, dun. Yeah, I could. In fact, I reckon. Oh, could I still play it? It'd be close. I reckon it was in E flat or A flat or something. Anyway.
Oh boy. So, okay. I didn't go that far, but that was the thing. The kids that could play that. Oh boy, that is really impressive. And I want to be like them. Instead of them being the follower, they could be the leader and the person that other people look up to. And like you said, that is a whole other topic that we could dig into some other time. Could you talk to me a little bit? The reason that we're here is because you have an exciting announcement that I'm delighted that my listeners get to hear straight from you. But to sort of lead into that, probably if a piano parent took lessons in a more traditional format. And do you mind talking a little bit about traditional lessons and kind of how you see the trends are sort of evolving and changing from what parents might expect for their kids?
Yeah, that's a great segue. So most listeners, if you learnt music as a child, think back to your first lesson if you can remember it. I can remember, and I started doing this when I started teaching because many of us teach the way we were taught.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that way of teaching involves the student sitting down at the piano and the teacher getting out a method book and pointing at middle C on a stave, garbled mess to the student who has never seen this kind of stuff before, pointing to a note on the piano saying, that is middle C, let's play middle C. Here it is, and let's count and hold for 1, 2, and do another middle C, 1, 2. And that's kind of how the lesson starts. And I just found it so unenlightening and so dull. And students don't want to do that. They don't want to read in their first lesson. It's just not, I mean, there are so many more things that we can do in that first lesson that not only are much more fun and exciting and engaging, but can also build the skills that we want the students to have in the coming years right from the start. And so that's what I've been able to think about as I've been putting my thoughts together for what we're going to be talking about.
Yes. And I'm hearing the saw in the background. You have to tell us what kind of renovations are you doing? Are you getting a new kitchen? Are you getting a new
yes,
extension?
Actually, they're putting the floor in the kitchen right now.
Okay.
Yes, it's we have a 1938 old part of the house, the front part, and that's what we've been renovating for 5 months. We've got 1 month to go, 5 weeks. And you're literally outside the office door here, and they're doing the floor of the kitchen right now. And there's painters in, and the electricians keep coming and going. Anyone who's lived through renovations will know exactly what I'm going through. Dust, yes. More dust and noise.
Yes. So it's even more valuable that you set aside some time to visit with us. I appreciate that, Tim. But I'm also jealous.
I just appreciate you putting up with the saws.
I'm just jealous of the new kitchen that you're going to have. You'll have to send me a picture when it's done.
Oh, I cannot wait. Yes, happy to.
So I remember also my lesson books were maybe C, D, and starting off in the middle and then kind of branching out finally, eventually. And I find that my students anymore, don't even like to have their thumbs together on middle C. They don't even, which I would
no
think,
one does though, right?
No, that's true.
It's
but I would
uncomfortable.
think as much as they're texting or kind of using video game controllers, that wouldn't be that big of a deal. And when I was a kid, I never thought to question, okay, I'm supposed to put my thumbs together on this one piano key. But kids these days do question, and they say, that's not comfortable. I don't like that. And so to ask a child to do that, they're excited about learning something new. And then all of a sudden we're going to stifle them and put them in this tiny little box. And you just believe there's a different way, a different approach beyond the traditional method book approach. I'm trying to use a different word other than approach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly what we're talking about. And I mean, method books are fantastic, Shelley. They are the best way to teach music reading, hands down. I wouldn't try it any other way. They are sequential and scaffolded and full of good pictures, and they start well and they grow and they build skills. So they are great. All I am suggesting is that teaching reading in the first lesson is not the best way to start off your journey with a brand new student who comes in excited and bubbling and wants to play something, and we can get to the reading a little bit later. Let's just leave it for a little bit. And that's my proposal for teachers. But the big challenge there, of course, is what do I do instead? That's all. Right. That's great, Tim. But what do I do?
Yes. And so you have a possible solution for us, and that's why we're here. Do you want to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag? We're talking
Absolutely.
around it.
I'm so excited. Look, I've been working on this for actually many, many years, and the concept is called No Book Beginners. So it started as an idea, and then it became an online course, and now I've created a book about it, and that's what we were going to be sharing today. So No Book Beginners takes teachers through anything up to 10 weeks of lessons with a new beginner student aged about 6 to 12-ish through non-reading activities. And we can go through what some of those activities actually look like. And the main sort of thinking behind it is comes down to the language acquisition model of music learning. And so for parents listening, if you had that lesson where you were, the first lesson you were taught to read things, think back to how, or, you've had children. How do children learn to read and speak? Do they read first? Do we tell them, no, you cannot speak until you've learnt to read, reading first? No, of course we don't, do we? We let them babble and create and talk and put sentences together. In musical terms, that would be kind of improvising and just creating. And then eventually we'll get to reading, and then eventually we'll get to writing. So the theory behind it, and it's not my invention, it's well researched and documented, that the language acquisition approach to teaching music learning or music reading is a much better way to go than starting with reading. So starting with improvising and creating first. It's also known as sound before symbol. So get the oral and the listening skills happening before you get to the symbols on the page. And it is just a great way to do it. But as I said earlier, if teachers have never taught off the page and have always had a book in front of them, the question is, what do you do instead? And so what No Book Beginners does, it starts with a sort of background of why we've got to this situation of method books, how that occurred, because back in Bach's day, they were only improvisers and composers. That's all they did. Right. And then somewhere along the line, things changed. So we talk a little bit about that. And then I go into the benefits and then actually give you 5 complete step-by-step, here's what to say and do lesson plans for the first 5 weeks. And then I let you know where you can get the next 5 weeks if you want to. And I should say, I call it a framework rather than a method, because you can jump in and out of this wherever you want to at any stage. And teachers might do the first 3 weeks, complete no books, and then start introducing reading along the side. Or they might do 5 weeks, they might do 10. It might change depending on the student or their age, all of these things. So it's a really flexible approach, but it gives you so many activities that you can do that don't include reading. And I can go through what some of those are if you'd like.
I would love for you to. And I'm also just kind of thinking from a parent's perspective, if you have a child that's thinking they might be interested in piano lessons. And maybe you as a parent, maybe you're not musical, but I feel like this book would be valuable to a parent to give them some ideas of some things that they can help their child start tinkering. We know what you said earlier about language acquisition. We know as parents, the way we teach our children to speak and to converse is by imitating and providing an example for them on the very, very basic level. Ba, 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 ba. Say ma, ma, ma before you say da, da, da. It's a competition between parents.
It's all right.
and so we know this in our head, but for some reason, when it comes to formal lessons, we feel like, oh, well, we're supposed to go this other route because that's what has been done before. That's what we've always done. And I like the idea that you, for those of us who like to have something tangible and something step by step written out, you've given that to us so then we can be a little more creative and free flowing with our students or with our own children. So yes, please do share a lesson or two or some ideas with us.
Sure. And I'd like to say too, I share in the book a number of testimonials from teachers that we've received. And I answer the question really specifically, what if I'm not creative? Because a lot of teachers who've particularly come through a traditional, and parents for that matter, who've come through a traditional classical approach will feel like they're not creative. How could I do this? And the fact is that the way I've explained these activities and the way we've designed them and structured them and scaffolded them, any teacher can do it. And so many teachers have come back to me and gone, oh my goodness, I didn't think I could do this, but wow, this is so cool. And the parents of my children are saying, wow, where did you learn to teach like this? This is so impressive and exciting and modern, and I can't get my child off the piano. So you can all do it, is what I want to say straight up. But look, just thinking at that first lesson, the approach I take and the one that's described in the book is the very first thing you do once you've introduced yourself and you've met the child and you got really excited and they're sitting at the piano is ask them what they want to play. We want to hear from them. We want to see what they would like to play. It might be the first four notes of Fur Elise. It might be Mary Had a Little Lamb. It could be hot cross buns or chopsticks. Who knows? But whatever it is, you're going to play along with them. So if you're a parent listening and you can play the instrument, how can you encourage them to play along? If they're playing chopsticks, can you learn the other part for it? If you're a piano teacher, can you play along? Maybe change sounds if you've got a digital instrument, put on a drum beat or play some chords along with it. Whatever it is, engage with it. Get excited by it. Show how passionate you are. Not only is this fun and builds rapport with the student, but you get the opportunity to listen, to hear what they're like. Can they keep a steady beat? Are they playing in time with you? Are they listening to what they're doing? Can they tell if they're playing things right or wrong? So you can start using this as a diagnostic. Secondly, what we're going to do is get them sitting correctly at the piano. So I've got this process of how to do that, and they get to go home and teach their parent how to sit at the piano, and they can sit badly and get the parent to teach them how to do it. And you can sit as the teacher really badly and get them to correct you and things like that. So there's a little bit of fun around that. We don't focus a whole lot, Shelley, on technique in the first few lessons because while it's important, again, I don't think it is the most important thing. We want them using the piano, pressing down that pedal, making great sounds. So once we've got them at least sitting correctly, which is really important, we're going to do some improvising. And I give a number of ideas for black note improvising, so using just the black keys. We provide fully orchestrated backing tracks. There's 3 different styles. There's like a bluesy one, there's a more pop one, there's a sadder one. So they can just use the whole piano and explore pedal, no pedal. You can play along, you can play the accompaniment, you can put on the backing track, whatever you'd like to do. And then I think the other activity that is in one of the first couple of lessons is what I call the animal improv activity, where we start using the whole instrument and we set different parts of the instruments. What animals could they represent? And could we make up a story about those animals? And you could show the child using the pedal, obviously. You can show them glissandos, running their fingers up and down the keys. What could that be in the story? And they just will have so much fun. It's a surefire way to get the student just engaged and listening and enjoying, and for you to enjoy that musical connection with a child who is imaginative and they're creative and they're curious.
Yes. And the thing that I'm thinking of, actually today, earlier, I teach general music classes in a charter school near me, and I'm teaching my kindergartners about Camille Saint-Saëns's Carnival of the Animals. And I haven't told them all of the animals, and we haven't talked about instrumentation very much yet. We were just listening as they did a coloring page today. And as they heard the light, bouncy, you and I know that it's staccato sounds, I asked them, what kind of animal could this be? Oh, it's hopping. It sounds like it could be a bunny or maybe a mouse, or, well, it's a kangaroo. And then something else that's running and fast. And I can imagine experimenting with all of those types of sounds, things that we wouldn't really discuss or give a formal label to until months into piano lessons, but they can experiment with those sounds just by exploring story and imitating animals, and even different rhythm patterns with different animal names or sounds. So much can be done without having to be bogged down deciphering unfamiliar symbols on the page.
Yeah, that's summed it up beautifully. Shelley, could you just give me 1 sec? Sorry, yes. I've just been interrupted by the contractors. I just need to answer a question, I think.
Very
Sorry.
Important people.
Just give me 1 second, okay? Sorry.
Okay.
Apologies for that.
No problem. So we were talking about, I was going to have something really smart to say. What was it? Just talking about all the fun things that can be facilitated through creatively making music at the piano and exploring sounds without being limited to what is written on the page. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and it goes beyond improvising. One of the other things that I really wanted to emphasize in these first lessons is singing. Piano students and teachers, for that matter, and perhaps piano parents listening, probably never sang in their lessons if they had piano lessons. A lot of other instrumentalists do, because when you're playing violin and things, you need to phrase things like you're a singer, and pianists do to some extent as well. But I think we're really bad at getting kids singing. And then suddenly when they're, 3 or 4 years in and they've got to do an audition or an exam or something, they've got to do these oral tests, and we suddenly realize that they have no confidence. They can't match a pitch. They struggle to clap back rhythms, things like that. So I wanted to bring singing in right from those first few lessons as well, and make that a regular, normal part of music lessons. Because if you can normalize it at the beginning, then it doesn't become such a big deal later on. So you'll find there's a song that we do. We keep beat and meter on our legs and in our body. We listen to the difference between things like 3/4 and 4/4 meter. We clap back, we pitch match, we sing back things that we hear played, we do echo play. There are lots of activities like that, as well as that the just general creativity and improvising that hopefully starts building those musicality skills that we want them to have later on.
Okay, so help a girl out. What if I have students and we didn't start singing from the beginning? How can I get them to open up now? Is it too late?
Well, it depends on the child and their age. I've taken on many transfer students who have been in that very situation. I don't always have a win. You can't always get them confidently singing. However, I have had some wins, even with teenage boys, who suddenly realize that with a bit of an encouragement, and the encouragement normally involves me singing along with them or demonstrating badly that I can only just sing, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Singing along with them and getting them to at least vocalize something out of their mouths. Suddenly you can realize, oh my goodness, you're actually, you can sing. And suddenly they're like, oh, this is quite amazing. And I've had a student exactly like this who ended up singing at a pop song recital. What did they sing? It was Piano Man, and it was fantastic. And his parents didn't even know he could sing.
Oh boy!
So all I would say in those situations is just encourage, sing along, demonstrate, be prepared to show that you are happy to try singing, because there's no point asking them to do it if you won't do it. And if all else fails, get out one of these. This is a kazoo.
Yes.
And the great thing about kazoos, do you use these in your lessons at all, Shelley?
I do not.
The great thing about a kazoo is if you just blow through it, nothing happens. You have to sing or hum into it. So without actually singing, you're kind of singing.
Yes.
So this can be a good intermediary tool.
Okay. I'm going to Amazon as soon as we're done. I'm going to order a gross of kazoos. I have used a blow whistle, like a party whistle, one of those things that unfurls. I used one just the other day with a little student who was missing all of the quarter rests. And I said, you have to blow when there's a quarter rest.
Oh, that's fun. That would be great fun. What a fun activity. Yes.
Yes. So, but kazoos, that's exactly right, because it won't make a sound unless you hum. And at least humming, there's so much value to vocalizing what you're doing with shaping the phrase and maybe cutting off a note so that you can have that rest. And that's really good. I need to encourage singing more with my own students, and parents can do that with their kids. If they're singing at the piano, that's good. Encourage that. Don't stop them.
Sing along in the car. Let them hear you sing in the shower. One of the big things we have lost with the move to everyone having phones and headphones is parents don't play music out loud in their houses much anymore.
That's true.
And I'm the same. I'll put my hand up and say I tend not to do that. Whereas back when I was a kid, that would happen all the time, and I'd listen to all my parents' records. Probably you're the same, Shelley.
Yes.
So if you can bring that back to some extent, then do, and sing along with it and show that you're interested in it. And then through gritted teeth, let them play something out loud that they're listening to. Our son was doing it in the car today, and I'm like, oh, the music of today. Oh my goodness. Anyway.
But that is that's so valuable just in the parent-child relationship to find out what is it about this song that you like, and maybe if the lyrics aren't exactly what, maybe we can have those conversations too. And that's something that I have advocated before and try to do with my own children is I'll let them be the DJ when we're on a car trip, and I'll let them choose the songs. And they've got some eclectic tastes. It's really, really interesting. And so I'm glad that you recommend singing. What else?
By the way, I'm often surprised by the number of teenagers these days who still like 80s music, because I think, again, their parents listen to it. And things like Michael Jackson will always be, it's always good music. So they'll always enjoy it.
Yes. I think it's, I enjoyed 50s music when I was a kid in the 80s. And so maybe it's the same thing. The kids of today, that's old music to them. It's the music of my people. So do you have another suggestion or another topic you can share with us?
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that comes up when teachers first hear about this approach is, okay, well, that sounds great. Maybe I can follow these lesson plans, but what does the child do at home if they've got no book?
Yes.
And how do we let the parents know that this is okay as well? So there's two sort of things that I'll speak to. Firstly, one of the chapters in the book is about how to let parents know what you're doing. And I share a quote from Elisa Milne. She's an Australian pedagogue down here, and she, if the parents are a little bit apprehensive or don't quite understand what you're trying to do, I share this quote that she shared in one of the blog posts on our site. Actually, she said, "If parents find this strange, tell them that it's much more important that you explore rhythm, pulse, creativity, and improvisation before they start reading. I've never had a parent anything but thrilled to see their child exploring lots of sounds on the piano, using all the keys and pedals, and having a ball." Isn't that true? That's what we want as parents for our child. And so one of the other things that you can do as a parent, if your child is having lessons and you feel they are very reading based and not very imaginative, they're not building your child's curiosity and creativity, then by all means share this book with them or any of the resources that we've got on our website for the teacher, and just say, look, love what you're doing with our child, but I've also heard about this thing because I listened to this amazing podcast by this incredible person, Shelley, and she was talking about this notebook thing. Maybe this would help you. So that was one thing I wanted to mention. The other one was this question of what do the children do if they're not reading music and turning the next page and learning the next piece.
Right.
And so what I provide each lesson with is a practice plan, although I recommend you all call it a play plan, and parents should do this as well. I think you might have talked about this too before, Shelley. Let's call it music play, or why don't we go and play the piano? I mean, we do call it playing the piano, don't we? But then we say we've got to practice, and practice sounds hard and boring, and who wants to practice? But maybe I'll just have a play. So we have a play plan for each lesson so that the child can continue on the things that they were doing in the lesson with you. So, for example, in that first lesson that I described earlier, the black key improvs, you will have access to the backing tracks for those, so you can share them with the child or their parent, and they can continue coming up with new improvisations, trying new note sets, new rhythm patterns, new areas of the piano, pedal, no pedal, different sounds on their digital instrument if they have one. For their animal improv, once they've done one in the class, they can go home and try a different one. Maybe the same 2 or 3 animals are doing this a different story, or maybe there are new animals that are being introduced. And when the child comes back for their lesson 2, they play the new improv to the teacher, who has to guess what the story is and what the animals are involved. And that's super fun because you can have a hysterical time coming up and experiencing this with the child. So those are the kinds of things that we share in each lesson plan, so that there is a really clear idea of what the child can keep on going with between lessons.
That's good. And is that a physical thing that I guess whoever the teacher is would kind of create on their own, or is that something that is in your book pre-made? The full lesson plans are detailed in the book, but we also, once you've got the book, you have access to our companion website, which has downloadable lesson plans. So full letter page. Normally you can print them out, bind them if you want to. That's also the place where you get access to all the backing tracks, the accompaniment sheet music, and also videos of me teaching these wonderful
lessons as well. So you can see me at the piano demonstrating every single step of the way, which makes things even easier and more achievable.
Yes, because I was thinking, I am grateful. Thank you for sending me a little preview of the book. And as I've been reading and annotating and making notes and sort of playing devil's advocate, one of the things that I thought about was as a kid and as a parent, I want something kind of tangible to show for this lesson. It made me think of when I first went to the doctor and found out that my first child was going to be born. He sent me home with a book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. And now all of a sudden it's real because there's no physical changes in the first few months. But so I'm glad to hear that is something that a child can bring home to show their parent, this is what we're doing, and to help a parent, especially if they don't attend the lesson with the child, if it's a drop-off pickup kind of a thing, then they have a little bit clearer indication of what needs to happen at home as far as playing in between the lessons.
That's right. And for any teachers who's finding the parents are a little bit apprehensive and think they're just making everything up on the spot, you can print out all the lesson plans for all the 10 weeks if you want, bind them and have them and say, here's the program I'm following. This is a structured, sequenced plan. So just to sort of put their minds at ease if there is any apprehension about it.
Yes, that's so good. But I also love, I have said before, I feel like guitar players in particular have a little bit of an advantage over piano players because, first of all, they take their own instrument wherever. A piano player can't take their instrument wherever. And my husband plays guitar, and he's been able to sit around in a jam circle, and they sort of watch each other, and they can see how the other guitarist is making the chords and all of that, and they share riffs and different chord sequences and all of that. And it's just more of an oral tradition, but more of a just kind of pass it down from one friend to the next kind of a thing. And I would like to see that more in the piano world. And I feel like this is a step in the right direction as far as sharing creative riffs or making up stories, but being able to share them less formally in a more informal setting.
And students can be encouraged by parents to share those improvisations with them, even have the child teach the parent, these are the black keys that you can use for this particular improv, because there's some that use like the groups of 3 black keys, and maybe a mum or dad could try improvising as well. So you've got that element of sharing, and kids love teaching adults, don't they?
Yes.
And being in charge.
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways that you can expand this. One of the things that has given me most heartfelt sort of appreciation having created this, and we've had well over 1,000 teachers use this program now, is the feedback that I get from teachers who think they weren't very creative, but have then taken these ideas and gone off on a whole new world, just using this as a little idea that they can then expand on. And so we've had people take, for example, we've got an around the world improv that happens over a period of 5 of the weeks, I think, where they get a little motive each week that sounds like a culture of the world, and they get to create something with that, and they get to write that down and put it in their passport, so they've got a tangible thing at the end of it. Because I'm very pro the art class idea.
Yes.
I've always wondered why all the kids get to take stuff home from art class and hang it on the wall and everything. We never get to do that in music, so I wanted this to be something that they could take home. So we've got lots of these ideas that teachers have then gone, I'm going to make, because one of the motives is Egyptian kind of sounding 5-note motive. So they made these headdresses, and the children coloured them in, and they wore them when they came back the next week. Just so many fun ideas that just come from these little things that we give you in the lesson plan. So take them and use them, and keep using them later on. This doesn't have to stop after this no book approach. Once you start reading, keep using these ideas, keep building on them.
Yes. The way I see it, this builds a vocabulary, or starts to build a vocabulary of things that a child can do, a student can do to kind of work from the inside out. So much of the traditional approach is taking outward information, external information, and trying to help a child internalize that. And it can be done, and that's the way I learned. It's likely the way you learned. But if I didn't have music in front of me, I didn't know what to do. I didn't play very well by ear. I never really tried. I wasn't encouraged to try, much less to just make up a sound and put a couple of sounds together. That was outside of my scope of even dreaming. And so I love the idea of flipping that model and giving people something they can start with internally and then externalize that. And then you can always add to and give it a proper name later on and go from there. This is beautiful.
I wonder how many of your listener parents who learnt as a child also, if they learnt past the first beginner lessons and learnt for a few years, how many of them did the things that this approach advocates, like playing by ear, listening to the radio or whatever it is, and playing stuff? How many of them did that behind their teachers' backs?
Right.
Because it was the fun thing to do. Yes. But they would never tell their teacher about it because the teacher was all like, no, you got to do the stuff in the book.
Right.
I want to change that paradigm. YouTube is not our enemy. It should be our friend. And if teachers are open to it and helping students learn the music that they want to learn alongside what we know that they need to learn, it can really build that connection and that sense of identity that we were talking about before, and the rapport as well between the teacher and the student.
Yes. So good. Thank you for writing this book, first of all. I think it is going to be a great help to teachers to give them, like you said, sort of a step-by-step. We don't know what to do. We know that it's a good thing to help our students to be creative from the get-go, but we're so comfortable with what we know. And so thank you for putting together something that is succinct and scaffolded, as you said, and organized. And our encouragement to piano parents who are listening today, if you have a teacher who's trying to be creative with your child, trust them and go along with the process and encourage your child to be creative and find their own musical voice, and get the book for yourself or gift it to your teacher. This is coming out pretty soon, right? We're in November and it's coming out later this month, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And there will be a way to download it if you want to. And we'll also have it print on demand on Amazon as well.
Perfect. So that's the thing. That's what you're going to get your teacher for Christmas this year.
What a great gift idea. I hadn't even thought of it. and I would just say sorry.
No,
I was just going to say to apprehensive teachers who might be listening, remember that this is just a book of ideas. Yes, it's fully sequenced and structured and scaffolded, and you can do it step by step if you want to. But if you're a little bit apprehensive, just read through the first few lessons and try just one or two things with one of your students. Just one thing is a great mantra, I think, when you're trying new ideas in lessons. I know that coming out of your comfort zone can be a bit scary at times. I've tried to make it as not scary as possible, but just dip your toe in the water. Try the improvs and the ideas yourself first, and then try some of those ideas with a student or two and see how it goes.
And you are a trustworthy teacher, Tim Topham. You have built a reputation of doing great things for teachers and encouraging them to do great things for their students. And so we can take your word for it. And I appreciate what you have done with this book. I appreciate you very much for spending some time with us on the podcast. It's so nice to hear straight from your voice, your passion for this and your passion for children and musicians to develop that lifelong musical interest. And I thank you for that. So tell us, I'll have links in the show notes for this episode, but tell us how we can get in touch with you and how we can go about getting the book.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on your show, Shelley. It's wonderful to be back. Let's hope next time we don't leave it for, 5 years?
5 years. Okay. It's a date.
So teachers or parents, just head to topmusic.co/book. That's where we'll have all the links to things and the download. You can also get the audiobook if you want to as well. And the physical print copy will be on Amazon and probably a few other places, but that will be the place to go. And but we'll try and have all the links that we have need at topmusic.co/book.
Fantastic. And then you're a Top Music everywhere, Instagram and Facebook and all of the things.
Yeah, connect anywhere you like.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And we're closing in on the top of the hour, and tell your contractors they did a great job.
I think my finger going on and off the mute button did most of the work. They haven't been too bad, actually.
No, not at all. And I'm excited for your new book, and I'm excited for your new kitchen. And it was so great to visit with you.
Thanks so much for having me, Shelley.
And that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for hanging around all the way to the end. If you haven't done so already, this would be a great time for you to hit the subscribe button. If you're listening through Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcast player is, hit subscribe so you will be the first to receive next week's episode. I would love to connect with you. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Piano Parent Podcast, and you could just email me, Shelley@pianoparentpodcast.com.